Lately I've been thinking about this life and how it brought me here. Staring at this man in the mirror, I see him often. He'll wipe my tears. Only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes. Certain things don't like to talk about, but I'll always remember. The chaos in my mind turned my heart out in November. I'm surrounded by too many doors, not sure which way I entered. But I'm rocking with my loved ones, let you know that front and center.
Welcome to the Message Hope podcast, where hope stands for hearing other people's experience. My name is Adam.
My name is Mike, and today is October 27th, 2024. And today our guest on this day 20 years ago had his first day clean, and he's here with us on the podcast. We really appreciate you being here, Chris.
Yeah.
Welcome on.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Can't do victory for one is a victory for all.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I really appreciate what you guys are doing here and trying to carry a message to people, and the message is hope.
Yep.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So thank you guys for your service of doing that.
Absolutely.
Very much needed around here.
Yeah, for sure.
Break some chains, man.
Yeah.
We got to get this message out there.
Yeah.
A lot of people hurting.
Yeah.
A lot of people hurting. This addiction has taken a lot of our friends.
Yeah.
And it's like a newer generation of being able to bring the message, you know.
Yeah, and how we deliver it.
100%.
How we deliver it. Yeah. Got to be open-minded to all that ways to do it.
Yeah, some people
That's why I'm here.
okay.
Yeah, they used to kind of call me old school because I like, coffee, pen, paper, look right across the room into somebody's eyes and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
We got to live out loud so we don't die inside is one of my
100%.
favorite sayings, you know, and so anyways, I'm grateful to be here, man. Thank you.
We're grateful to have you, bro.
Yeah,
for us.
yeah.
So, Chris, we started off the same way. We start where it all started. Where did you grow up? How did you grow up?
Sure.
Was there addiction in the
Sure,
household?
Sure. So, I grew up in the city of West Covina.
Okay.
It was growing up was really cool for me, man. I had a great family. I had an older brother, older sister, mom and dad that were together. My dad was actually, he was one of us, but, he never really said that he was. So I really can't call him that. But,
Right.
So he owned liquor stores growing up. So when I was 12 years old, I was working in my dad's liquor store, selling cigarettes and moving beer up and just, living in my dad's world in the liquor store, meeting people. It was kind of different back then. I'm older.
Yeah.
I was born in 1967.
Okay.
So, I'm 57 years old and I'm 20 years clean. And, growing up in that time, my dad was just really friendly with everybody, and it was come in and grab their stuff and then sign a little paper. And, it was just really hands-on and really easy time. And growing up for me, my life was centered in baseball, really. My life was centered in baseball. Everything was baseball. Baseball. I mean, if that was my first drug of choice, it had to be baseball. You know what I mean? I just lived. My life was centered in it. When we were 14 years old, we went back to Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and we won the World Series for West Covina.
Nice. So
So we beat Japan, we beat Florida, and we did all these like little, this traveling baseball team. My life was really centered in baseball, but my home life was really, really good. Even though my brother and sister, there's like straight A students, and then comes me, who was like the sports guy and the friendly guy, and I just got by in school. You know what I mean? Just because I wanted to play sports.
Yeah.
So I did what I had to do. Home life was, my brother and sister were older than me, so it was just like I would get shoved off to my grandmother's a lot. And they would all go do things, and then I would get stuck with my grandma. We used to call her Nanny and Pa. That's how we, our grandma was Nanny and Pa. And Nanny, they were both old Italians, and she taught me how to cook sauce, and Pa taught me how to trim roses, and it was really simple. Christmases were good. Mom made Christmases so special. I mean, I always had, the new bike or ping pong table, or just everything was good. Home life was good, man. And life centered in ball. And then I think when I came home from the World Series and I started my freshman year is when, I went to that backyard cake party. And I didn't leave till I was 37.
Right.
Yeah, But again, growing up, we all had good stuff. But I think too, my mom and dad split when I was 15. My dad's drinking just took off, and you know, my mom split. My mom went to Pomona, and I stayed with my dad and graduated high school. You know, I stayed with my dad, and, you know, we started drinking together a little bit, me and my dad, but very little, you know, at an early age. I really wasn't into it. But life was simple, man. Life was simple. Life was good. It wasn't like, you know, my home life sucked.
Right.
It really wasn't. It was really good. I had everything that I wanted. Mom was good. And then when mom split, you know, and then me and my dad ended up splitting and going to Vegas. And I got left alone. I was living in a condo at 16 years old. My mom would come by once a month to fill the fridge, you know, and man, that's when my partying kind of took off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's when I lived right across the street from the high school.
Yeah.
You know, and we used to jump the fence, and that's when just the party life took off, kind of. I went from all my baseball friends to like skateboarding friends in one summer. I think it was my 15-year-old summer to my 16-year-old year. 15 to 16. Freshman gonna go be a sophomore.
Right.
That's when all my I turned in my baseball equipment and picked up a bong.
I did the same exact thing, dude.
Yeah.
I wanted to play baseball, but as soon as I heard there was a drug test, I pretty much knew I was out of the race.
Right. Well, see, so I continued to try to play baseball. I made the varsity team as a sophomore, but then I threw a backyard party at my house, and all the teammates found out that I was drinking and stuff like that, so they kicked me off and put me down to JV. And I was like, nah, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And like I said, all my friends switched. I went from all ball to now just skateboarding, punk rock music, you know, living that lifestyle right away. Boom. One summer. And that's kind of how it all kind of got started for me. But to tell you the truth, growing up it was good when I look back at my childhood and all the pictures and growing up in West Covina. My dad had liquor stores in La Puente, Ballin Park, and West Covina.
Okay.
So 3 different liquor stores. And then another thing that really kind of hit us big was on Christmas Day. I was 12 years old, and my dad came home from the store to open presents on Christmas Day, and his dad was running the store, my grandpa, Pa Frank. And somebody called and said there was a fire on the roof. And he climbed up on the roof and fell off the roof.
Oh, man.
And it really crushed my dad when his dad passed away. And that was like the first kind of gives me the God bumps, you know. That was kind of like the first time I saw my dad. Like, my dad jumped in the casket. My dad just was distraught. You know, we kind of lost my dad there.
Right.
And then my dad, you know, he was he fought in the Korean War, you know, so then he had to sell his liquor stores off to the Koreans, and he just lost it. You know, and so I feel like I lost my family right around then and there. You know, I lost my dad for sure right around 12. But, you know, he was around, and then at 16 is when he split, and he ended up going to Las Vegas, and they found my dad passed away behind Arizona Charlie's in 1999 due to alcohol.
Wow.
You know, and I remember the last time I talked to my dad was on Father's Day, and the last words I got to say to him was I love you. I used to call him Coach. I love you, Coach. I love you, Coach. And he said, love you too, son. And that was the last time I talked to my dad. Yeah, that was 1999. So that was, you know, we all go through stuff in life, you know. My mom's still doing good. My mom lives in Vegas. Okay. She's going to be 90 this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm a really big mama's boy. Yeah. So, you know, she's been an enabler to me, though, too. You know, this whole time I dragged her through the mud. As you can hear when we get into my story of unmanageability as the use of drugs. Right. You know.
So all through high school, you're partying, weed, alcohol,
weed and
anything
alcohol.
else?
Weed, alcohol. Yeah, we tried freebase one summer. I remember it was, you know, well, I'm BC. I'm before crack. That's how old I am. You know, I'm BC. You know, before crack, we used to call it freebase. Good old Richard Pryor taught us how to use that stuff. You know, but we kind of went through that one summer, and I was 16, and I spent all my little money that my mom had given me as a kid, and I spent it all on cocaine, And I was like, that stuff's horrible. And I really never wanted to use that again. So, also at 16, I bought my first pound of marijuana. Or I really didn't buy it. The kids in Baldwin Park, because as I was working in my dad's liquor store at 16, the older kids came and said, hey, man, why don't you get rid of this for us? So I was working in my dad's liquor store at 16 selling marijuana and alcohol to everybody who came in there. You get pretty popular.
Yeah.
I was probably more popular than the high school quarterback. You know what I mean? Because I'm like selling weed and selling alcohol to everybody coming in. And high school, again, was just very great times. Great times. I graduated by the skin of my teeth. Me and my first sponsor, Danny C., we were voted to be most likely to not succeed in high school.
The same high school?
Same high school. Me and Danny grew up. He was my first sponsor. I knew my first sponsor since the 8th grade.
Dang.
Wow. Yeah.
And then when I very first got clean, Danny was in the rooms with 3 years clean, and I was like, wow, you got 3 years clean, And I was like, I knew how he used, and he had a car, and he had cigarettes, and he had money. So I was like, dude, you're my sponsor, bro.
Yeah.
You're my sponsor,
That's funny.
But Danny, just I squirrel share a lot. I kind of forget where I was going, but working in the liquor store, and that's how kind of pot and alcohol came into my life. Selling marijuana at 16. I was the type of guy who didn't know how to use drugs and not sell drugs. I've always had that growing up. So, high school was about that.
Okay.
Party, man, party.
So you barely graduate, and then what?
Barely graduate. Then what? Man, I don't know. I kind of blacked out, man. I don't really remember the 90s. I don't really remember the 90s, but let's just go, 16 years old, I got my first drunk driving. Okay, 16 years old, I got my first drunk driving. I blew a .29 blood alcohol level.
That's pretty high.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. I've gotten 4 drunk drivings in my time.
Yeah.
.29, .28. My third one was a .08. And I told the cop, I was like, dude, I wake up at a .08. You know what I mean? I'm not drunk.
Yeah.
And then I got one. So it was 16, 19, 26, and 33 were the ages I got my drunk drivings.
.29 is almost hospitalization, isn't it?
Yeah, but I was having a good time, man. We always used to say, let's go get one good eye. Because like when I would black out drink, I would only have one eye. It would be like that. I would just have one eye would be totally shut and one eye was open, so everybody knew I was in a blackout.
Yeah.
I was a blackout drinker from the get go, because I don't have that stop button.
Yeah.
I don't have that stop button. I always say I don't like to drink till I'm drunk. Once I'm drunk, then it's like, hey, it's time to drink.
Yeah.
It's time to drink. So. But again, I think high school, and then after high school. I absolutely did really nothing. Working in my dad's liquor store and selling marijuana, and I got kicked out of that condo that I was living in when I was 16, and I moved back with my dad when I was like 18. And how me and my dad became buddies again was we started playing golf together. Okay, so golf became a really big part of my life. Like growing up, it was like, after high school, it was basically punk rock, drinking, and then golf, right? And so we would go to this place called Fender's every weekend. It was a ballroom in Long Beach. And it didn't matter who was playing, from GBH to, this was like when Bad Religion was first coming out, and Circle Jerks and Dead Kennedys and Minor Threat, and all these bands were playing at this place. And we would just show up, man, and just get drunk and angry and be in the slam pit. And my life was centered in punk rock music and golf, And I also had this pit bull, to get into it. And, I always talk about how recovery is like a love story to me. Right. Because as growing up, love always left me. As growing up, like my mom left when I was 16. And then, my dad left. And then just baseball left. And then I got this pit bull. Her name was Maggie. And when she died, it was like, man, love always leaves, And so I just live that life now centered in drugs and alcohol and selling drugs and playing golf, probably from the age of 16. Gosh, like I say, I don't remember the 90s. I was really blacked out the whole 90s. Like, I have a wife who lived through the 90s, and she always brings stuff up in the 90s and the music and the movies, and I'm like, I don't remember none of that. I don't remember none of that. You know, I'm an 80s kid, man, and right around 80, I guess 90, I just kind of blacked out for the next so many years of just drinking, selling weed, living with my pit bull. He used to pull me on a skateboard so fast. I used to get drunk, and then Magnum would pull me on the skateboard. And I mean, I don't really know how to explain like those years except for just drunk years, you know, drunk years.
Were you working at your dad's liquor store the whole 90s?
My dad ended up selling the liquor stores.
Okay.
So I worked with them for a little bit, but then after that, I kind of worked. I did just really weird stuff, man. My life was really weird. Like, I did balloon decoration for car lots.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to do balloon decorations for car lots. I valet parked cars, but that wasn't good. I crashed so many cars drunk, valet. You know, I never really had like never really had a job except for selling weed.
Yeah.
You know, that was my whole life. You know, I was living in Pomona then. So after West Covina, I got kicked out of West Covina and I moved to Pomona. So I was probably 19 or 20 years old to move to Pomona. And, I guess maybe I am a tapper. Moved to Pomona, and I had my own little spot with my dog. And, you know, it was my mom's property that I apartment managed today.
Yeah.
But I was there just living there, you know, and just living the party life again. Punk rock and golf.
And golf.
Punk rock and golf. I picked up golf pretty simple. Like I said, I was playing with my dad, right? And he used to be in this league called the High Cappers, and it's for like high handicappers, you know, people that aren't very good.
Yeah.
And I walked in there and I took my baseball skills and I could play pretty good right from the start. And then this guy, his name was Manny Ortega, and he was the greenskeeper at San Dimas Canyon Golf Course. And he took me under his wing and he showed me the fundamentals of how to swing and how to play. And right away, I just got, you know, really interested in golf and playing a lot of golf. But I didn't know how to go to another level because I surely wasn't going to go to college. You know, I just never knew how to progress. I did end up start working at a golf course in 1997. I worked at a golf course in Pomona. I ended up becoming teaching pro for that golf course for years until I went on the pipe tour. I always say, you know, we'll get into that maybe later. But golfing and just, you know, living and enjoying life with the use of drugs.
Yeah.
I really was. I was living and enjoying life with the use of drugs. I had many stints of, you know, drunk drivings, possession of marijuana, going to jail, like constantly in and out of jail, you know, constantly in and out of jail, with just that, you know, drunk in public. I got arrested for a menace to society one time and spent 30 days in the county jail because I was trying to sneak into the LA County Fair, and I got caught on the barbed wire. And I was hanging on the barbed wire, and the cop pulled me down from the barbed wire, and I turned around and I kicked him right in his crotch and went running. And they ended up surrounding me in the fun zone. I ended up going to jail for 30 days for a menace to society. And, you know, I wore that on my sleeve, man. Yeah. I'm a menace to society. Right. You know, I wore that on my sleeve. So, you know, just the drunk years, man. Probably from after high school. Like 1987, I just jumped straight in the bottle when I moved out into Pomona and selling weed and playing golf for the next, 10 years. You know, building my life up and tearing it down.
And you always lived in those apartments you talked about, right?
Yeah.
So that is part of how you say your mom enabled you? You always had that?
I always had that.
Okay.
Yeah, Mom always took care of me.
Because anybody else without that,
yeah, Mom
crash
always
and
took care
burn
of
real
me.
quick.
Oh, yeah, they've been on the street.
Yeah.
You know, but I had that, and still in the end, I ended up, you know, being a tweaker on a bicycle, living like I was homeless, even though I had a place to go.
Yeah.
You know, I just, my house just became the party house.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a party house. You know, but there was really no meth or cocaine or nothing like that. It was just pot and alcohol. And I guess some mushrooms. We used to love to get the psilocybin, you know, the little mushrooms, and then, you know, climb up in the trees and look around. We used to also have a hole in the fence because I lived right by the Pomona Fairgrounds. So we used to have this hole in the fence. And when the fair wasn't there, we would take a bunch of mushrooms and we would play hide and go seek in the fairgrounds, all shroomed out. And drunk. I mean, we're like 25 years old playing hide and seek. You know what I mean? I mean, I never really grew up. I always say, like, I played cops and robbers till I was 37.
Yeah.
You know, I played cops and robbers till I was 37.
Yeah.
You know, we just lived that lifestyle of having fun, partying, and just, I don't even know how to explain it. Just drunk party years, you know, of having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
When did the harder stuff come into the picture?
Well, you know, it's all hard. It's all hard.
I mean,
but I guess like meth or whatever. So how did that come into my life? So 1997, I had gotten my 4th drunk driving, and I had my first run of recovery. Like, my mom and everybody was like done with me, right? My mom and everybody was like done with me and drinking. And I didn't really go to any 12-step fellowship or nothing. I went to jail. And then after I came out of jail, I did this outpatient program. And I found the cure to my alcohol problem when a friend of mine gave me some speed.
Yeah. I had the same experience.
Yeah. You know, and I did a bump, and man, I was like, man, it was kind of like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is great. I don't even feel like drinking.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's like, you know, shoot, it was Friday and it's Friday again. Like, wow, you know, everything's getting going, man, and everything. So I think it was in 1997 is when I wanted to stop drinking. I wanted to stop drinking, and my cure to drinking was I did meth, right? And it worked, man. It was like, this is great. Until that just got really weird. So from 97, and then I started getting in trouble with the meth stuff, you know, commercial burglary, you know, just leaving every night, doing weird stuff. And I really got like out of control with it. And the people in my life, I treated them like I was in the pot world still. And they're different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tweakers are different. You know what I mean? Tweakers they're different. You know, I'm fronting all kinds of stuff. Because like I said, I didn't really know how to use drugs and not sell drugs. So I just switched. I'm not going to sell the marijuana. I'm going to sell the meth. And so I got really heavily involved in that. And then it got really weird. And then I got in trouble for that. So I went to my first sober living in 1997. It was out in Long Beach. And I only went there because I had gotten in trouble on New Year's. I was like on the 10 freeway walking my bike, and some cop picked me up, and I was in trouble, you know. So I went to a sober living, and I heard the message there that you could do a program instead of prison, you know. And so I went there. I stayed there 11 days, and I came home, and that's when I stopped drinking, and I stopped using everything except for marijuana. And that's when I got my job at Mountain Meadows, or at the golf course in Pomona. I worked at Mountain Meadows for a real long time. And anyways, I started working there, and I just was smoking pot. You know, wasn't going to drink, wasn't going to do nothing. And then one day I was working behind the pro shop, and some guy came in, and he tipped me with a bag of speed. And I hadn't used that in a while, you know. I was like, oh, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. And he's like, you know, but I put it in my pocket. And then, and I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop thinking about it. And, but I didn't do it. And then one night I had a couple beers. I had a couple beers from the coffee shop, and I was hitting balls with my friend Kelly, and he was like, hey, man, you look a little tired. You want some of this? And he pulled out this black pipe. Because when I had used meth before, we had never smoked it. I had only snorted it, you know, or put it in toilet paper and eat it.
Yeah.
But now this guy broke out this black pipe, and I was like, what's that? And he was like, yeah, go try it. So I went into the bathroom, and man, I took 4 rips off that thing, and life was changed.
Yeah.
Life was changed. I'm not really sure what day that was, but I do remember maybe about a week or so after that, I was in my shower, and I was taking a shower, and I remember like, damn, I'm hooked again. I don't think I'm going to be able to go a day without this stuff. And man, it just went on and cracking. So I called that dude that tipped me at the golf course, because I went back and I got his number out of the pro shop book, because they leave their phone numbers. Yeah. And I went back and I found it and I called him. I'm like, hey man, it's Chris from the golf course. It was like 3 a.m. one night, and I'm like, it's Chris from the golf course. I was wondering if you had any more of that stuff. And he said, I'll be right over. And this is like 3 a.m, bro. And he just showed up all happy, and I'm like, damn. And the next thing you know, for the next 5 years, me and that dude just were together. You know, we ended up getting busted for manufacturing, you know, in 2004. 2004. So that was like 97. So from 97 to 2004, my life was centered in methamphetamines, working at the golf course, taking money, you know, being just lost. And then I lost my job at the golf course in like, I want to say 2000. And I was working there in 2000, because I remember it was 2000. It's probably 2001. And I ended up getting fired from that golf course for doing scandalous stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And that just was like, I was like, good, more time to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that was street crime. And that's when life got really different, man. And that's when I jumped on a bicycle, you know what I mean? Stealing copper pipe. I always said I was in the copper rush, you know, in Pomona. I was in the copper rush in Pomona. And also, you know, remember I was telling you my pa had me, you know, learning about flowers and roses and gardening. Something in me was stuck in me, and I got strung out on stealing cactus plants. I got strung out on succulents, because I was watering really late one night out in the garden, and because my house still I had like all this stuff, you know. My house wasn't a tweaker pad yet. It was still like, you know, all these things I used to take from the golf course and all these plants and all this stuff. And I was watering one night, and this little succulent like bloomed at like 3 a.m. And I was like, oh my God, they're tweakers. I love cactus plants. And now I just went on this mission, and I was out every night coming up so I didn't have to come down. You know what I mean? Yeah. I started stealing copper pipe, taking everything. You know, I just became this street crime dude. And, you know, I always say if it wasn't the drugs that got me, it was definitely the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so my life kind of, after I got fired from the golf course, I kind of turned into, like I say, a tobe, a tweaker on a bicycle.
Yeah.
You know, running around, doing street crime, picking up receipts on the ground at Walmart, and then stealing what's on the item and then returning it. Yeah. And going to all these different stores, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, you know, and just being a little street urchin, picking up receipts on the ground, and can I steal that item? What is that? And I just got so deep in coming up. Yeah. You know what I mean? The ways and means to get more got so weird for me.
Right.
And because also when I was working at the golf course, I had money to buy drugs from this dude, right? And I was like, every night I would show up and I would buy a large amount of drugs every night. He would say, Chris, it doesn't matter how much I gave you the night before, you're back the next day buying another big bag.
Yeah.
You know, but then after I left the golf course, I didn't have ways and means to get money like that.
Right.
And I really was hustling backwards. You know, I was more of a thief than a drug dealer at that time. Yeah. Because I was my best customer. And I was trying to play everybody, here, use this, here, use that. Here, go ahead, pay me later. You know, no problem. I got that. And then when I lost my job there, now I was stuck with having to find ways and means to get more.
Yeah.
You know, having to find ways and means. And that's when what happened at first was me and my buddy Kelly, the same guy that I hit balls with, and we played golf together all the time. He was like my tweaker buddy. And he said, let's clean up your backyard. So we're cleaning up my backyard. And there was this empty keg that I had in my backyard. We used to sit on it, you know. Mm-hmm. And I took it to the recycling company because I recycled it, and it was like $15 for the empty keg. And I was like, dang, $15, that's a lot of money. Yeah. So I went on a mission to steal every beer keg I could. So now I'm at night running amok, stealing kegs, stealing plants. And one summer we took like 2,000 beer kegs to this recycling guy. And he said, Chris, come on, let me show you something. And he took me into this back room in the back of the recycling thing. And he said, look at that. And he showed me, and it was this pile of copper, this beautiful orange color copper. And he said, no more beer kegs, man. You need copper. Because he was just as much a criminal as I was. You know? Yeah. And so we switched that summer from copper, from stealing kegs from behind restaurants to now going in abandoned buildings and ripping all the copper out and just, you know, in the copper rush.
Yeah.
And I lived that way from probably 2001 to 2004. So it was probably about a year before I got clean, me and this guy, the same guy that tipped me at the golf course.
Yeah.
He started to do what we call starbecues at my house. And a starbecue is where there's a lot of cooking going on, but not a lot of eating, if you know what I mean. So he was manufacturing meth at my house.
Yeah.
So I went from that guy tipping me like 5 years previously to now letting him in my house maybe every few months to make a big batch of meth, you know, and I just got really strung out on doing that. And so that probably lasted 18 months until I just got so out of it, you know, and so out of it. And I don't even know. And, you know, at that time, right near the end of my using, a girl that I had been with previously, she had showed up to my house and trying to get me to stop, you know, and I was like, you know, I don't know how. I don't know how. And it wasn't really stop using drugs. It was stop manufacturing methamphetamine. Stop doing this. We're losing you, you know, and I couldn't see that. And I just told her, no, thank you, you know, and it came out that, that she had my daughter. My daughter, Jasmine Starr, was born in 2003, and she lied to me that she was even my daughter because I was such a cuckoo bird. So my life was so unmanageable, you know, right before I got clean. You know, my life was so unmanageable of just like not sleeping, not eating. I was like 140 pounds on a bicycle, you know, and but I didn't really, I was living and enjoying life. Yeah. I really was. You know, I had stints of like a little bit, like during my build it up, tear it down from the age of 16 to 37, I would build my life up and tear it down, build my life up and tear it down. But all I would do is fix the outside things. Right. You know, I get the car back, I get the job back, I get the girl back, I get trust in the family back, but I never fixed the problem, me. You know, so when, I'm not sure really what happened that night. It was October 19th, 2004, and we were doing the barbecue at my house, and the house got raided from an anonymous caller. It was a tip. And the house got raided, and I wasn't there at the time. Luckily, I was out on my bicycle trying to come up, you know what I mean, while things were going on at the house. You know, because I was more of the guy that just had the house and prepared everything and then cleaned everything up. I wasn't like the main dude doing the, you know, I wasn't the scientist, we used to call him. I wasn't that guy. I was just the cleanup guy, you know what I mean? And use my house and da-da-da-da-da. And they would give me a bunch. They would give me money and everything was good. Yeah. You know, so then when I came home, I remember coming home that night or somewhere right around 3, 4 in the morning, and I turned the corner to go down my street, and the whole street was lit up. Pomona police, sheriffs, fire department, and hazmat team. And I was like, damn. I looked at the girl I was with, and I was like, I wonder what happened to the neighbor. Right? And she's like, what? And so I back out, and now I'm in these bushes. And again, this is October 19th, 2004. And I was in these bushes, and they were coming out of the house with all the manufacturing equipment, everything. And I was like, man, I was this godless 37-year-old. And I was like, probably my first prayer of like what I heard when I was in that sober living before. I was like, I need a program. I don't want to go to prison. I need a program. Right. Yeah. And So I didn't even tell you. So the girl, so yes, Jasmine was born in 2003, right? And then my son, here's another unmanageable get down. In November, so let's see. So I'm not sure of the month, but it was right around 2004, right before I got clean. I went to Orange County Jail because I got caught stealing a bunch of beer kegs from medieval times. And a bunch of stuff. I was in Knott's Berry Farm, you know. I used to have these things called bolt cutters.
Yeah.
And they were called the key to the city.
Yeah.
You know, so I was stealing all these beer kegs from medieval times. I had all this copper that I had stole from like Knott's Berry Farm, these wind chimes from Knott's Berry Farm. I had all this stuff, right? And I got busted, right? I got caught. And I went to the farm in Orange County.
Yeah.
And I did like 90 days at Orange County Jail for, I think they got me they didn't get me for grand theft. Medieval Times was very nice to me. They said I had like $999 worth of their property instead of $1,000 would have been grand theft.
Yeah.
And I would have been off to prison. You know, I didn't see God working in my life then, but God has always been working in my life. So I ended up doing the farm time. I came home from the farm and I had been gone like, 100 days because after I did the farm, then I had to go to L.A. County Jail because I had like a warrant from there. And then I had to go to San Bernardino County and clear up a warrant from there. I couldn't get released, So I came home, I was gone about 4 months. And the girl that I was with when I came home, she was plump. And I was like, I thought maybe, she hadn't been using while I was gone. So now I'm calling all my friends over and we're getting ready to get together to do another batch because I had been gone a long time and we're trying to get all the chemicals together and we're trying to figure out a time we could, do another barbecue. And we're all sitting around and we're smoking and the girl that I was with, she was in the room and didn't want to come out. And I'm like, man, you must be sick if you don't want to get high. So I took her to the hospital, right? I said, you got to be sick. You don't want to get high. You must be sick. So I took her to the hospital, and I'm in the hospital, and I'm filling out this paperwork for her, all phony name. You know how we do it, phony name, phony stuff. And then I go to turn it in at the hospital, and I'm all, where's my girlfriend? And they're all, oh, she's upstairs in labor. I'm like, in labor for what? And they're all, well, she's 7 months pregnant, and the baby is in her back.
Oh, wow.
So that's how my son was brought into the world, right? So my son was born September 15th, 2004. So my daughter's October 15th, 2003. My son is September 15th, 2004. And he was taken from me because he was born under the influence of methamphetamines. His grandmother, the girl that I was with, mom, stepped up and adopted him, right? So my daughter was being lied to me that she was even my daughter because I was such a cuckoo bird. And my son was taken away because he was born under the influence of meth. So for me, at that time, I was still living animalistic and I didn't even care. I didn't even care, And then, so after my son was born in the hospital and I wasn't even available or visible or anything in that. I remember I went over there to try to be a part of when he was going to be born, and I passed out in the elevator and did one of those, like, I'm going to just rest for a second. And I woke up with these nurses asking me if I was okay.
Yeah.
And I got up, I saw these nurses, and I got up and I just ran. And I ran. I've been running for a long time. And I ran all the way home. And that was that was the end, man. That was getting near the end, even though I didn't know I was done yet.
Yeah.
So then on October 19th was when I came home to the barbecue. And that's when all the cops were there. And I was in the bushes, and I went on the run. Like I said, that was October 19th. My clean date is October 27th. So I really wasn't on the run very long.
No.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when you run out, you're on the run, you run out. And I'm calling all my friends like, hey, I need to hook up. I need something. I'm dying over here. And they're like, didn't your house just get raided last night? And I'm like, yeah. They're all, oh, we quit. Nobody wanted to touch me.
Yeah.
Because they thought I was going to try to set everybody up. But I was just trying to get some more, you know what I mean? I'm dying here. I'm a meth mummy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm dying. And so finally, here's the end. I end up going to my son's adopted mom's house, the girl that I was with, mom, which I was not supposed to go over there. And a little bit before Manny was born, Emmanuel was born, her name is, that doesn't matter. But anyway, she showed up at my house. And she said, and this is a true story, and she told me when I had about 4 years clean. She said, that night I came and showed up at your house, and I don't remember. She said, I was on the way to your house to put a knife in your chest because you had ruined my daughter. She was 16 years younger than me. You know how you rob rob the cradle? Well, she robbed the wheelchair. But anyways, her mother was very upset that I had taken her down to that level. And her mom said, I was on my way to your house to put a knife in your chest when you opened that door. And she said, when I was getting off the freeway on White Avenue, she said, God spoke to me and said, don't you touch my son. I have big plans for him. She told me that when I had 4 years clean. But so she came to my door. I don't remember. She knocked on my door. I answered the door, and she said, you need the Lord. And very kindly, I said, no, thank you. And I shut the door in her face. Okay. So somehow, some way, when I was on the run, I ended up at her house. And I said, I'm in a lot of trouble and I need help. And she helped me. And she helped me. She sent me to a place out in Paris, California. It's not affiliated with any 12-step recovery, but it was a place there that I went because the only reason I went there is because they said, you'll be on church property and the police cannot come get you.
Yeah.
That's all I heard.
Yeah.
This godless 37-year-old punk was like, well, let's go. And she was going to pay the money for me to go there. It was like a 60-day program. And I went there, and my story for that is I was there trying to get reborn, but all I could think of was meth and porn. You know what I mean? I was dirty, bro. I was dirty. I was very dirty. And the things that they were trying to teach me really weren't hitting. You know, they really weren't hitting. And I was like, you know, I stayed there, though. I ended up staying there for the 60 days. And I invited a God into my life. And, you know, he's been directing me ever since. That was I went there on November 2nd. I went there on November 2nd, 2004. Because I had to be able to test clean from meth to go there.
Right.
So I stopped using on October 27th. And then I went there on like November 2nd or November 4th, something like that. Because I thought I would be clean on meth. And that's where my journey started. Serving God, man. Serving God. I went there not knowing what I was doing, and but when I left there, I prayed for direction. I said, just direct me. And he directed me to a recovery home in Covina.
So you didn't go right back home?
No. I still had never been back since the meth lab. I live 2 doors down from there now, because that was my mother's property too.
Yeah.
They were almost taking all that away from her, everything. I remember my mom, when I first went to the place where I went out in Paris, we couldn't get any phone calls. We couldn't get anything. But she wrote me a letter how they're trying to take all of her properties away from her, how they found the meth lab, you know, and there's a grammar school right behind me.
Ooh.
And they're trying to take all of her property, and how could you do this to me? And in the frame of mind I was still in, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Somebody broke in, Mom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know how we don't know how to live the truth. So, but anyways, that's kind of where my recovery started. That was kind of how it ended. You know, that was kind of how it ended. Just living from being this tweaker on a bike, street crime. I had gotten in trouble. So here's another thing. So when my very first arrest in tweaking, when I was tweaking after all of my drunk drivings and all that stuff, my very first arrest, I was on mushrooms and I was driving down Las Tunas Boulevard, and the cop pulled me over, and I was like shroomed out of my mind, you know, and he came up to the car and his badge was in his eye, you know, like Kiss. And I was really freaked out looking at him, and he was like, you need to get out of the car. And I was like, oh, no. And he pulled me out the car, and he found, you know, like a bunch of weed, a bunch of meth, and 9 grams of speed and like $600. And so anyways, that was when my first felony started. I ended up getting in trouble. And I had this lawyer that my mom got for me. And I'll remember that lawyer told my mom, if you don't stop him now, it's going to get so much worse. And I remember looking at my mom dead in her eyes, and I said, Mom, I'm good. I'm not going to be doing that no more.
Yeah.
And it got so much worse.
Yeah.
It got so much worse.
You know what's crazy is she wanted to believe you then. Probably did.
I kind of wanted to believe me too.
Yeah.
She did. She wanted to believe me. She wanted to believe me, and it just got so much worse. So that was the end of my run. And now, after I left the place in Paris and I prayed for direction, I went to a recovery home in Covina. And I'm living in this sober living. And I'm just getting ready to take my 6-month chip. And I had started a new job. And that night I was going to celebrate 6 months. And as I was leaving my job, I was leaving the job and the police surrounded us. And, Chris Kohler, get out of the car, hands up, walk backwards, down on the ground. And I got arrested for my manufacturing case. And now that started my about 9 months in the county jail, fighting 14 years in prison.
Clean.
Yeah, clean. I went there with 6 months. I knew nothing about recovery, but all I talked about was recovery. I had done my first 3 steps with Danny, and I went there with that foundation. I knew I was addict. I knew my life was unmanageable, but it wasn't just a drug. It was like I was very obsessive, compulsive, and self-centered. Like Danny was very important that I understood what addiction was. He drilled it into me that it's not a drug problem.
Right.
The drugs were your solution, Chris, for a really long time. And you used them to control your feelings and emotions. And that's what made your life unmanageable. You know what I mean? You don't know how to manage your feelings and emotions without drugs. And so he made a lot of sense, because I always say I had 2 feelings before recovery. Man, I'm high. Or, man, I need to get high. That's about it.
Yeah.
I wasn't lonely. I wasn't bored. I wasn't horny. I wasn't tired. I don't know feelings. I'm just either high or we need to get high.
Right.
And now that you took that away from me, he just really drilled in about addiction. And I really knew when I went to there that because coming to believe in a power greater than myself, at this place where I was at, I was like, you know what, I'm going to serve God. I'm going to serve God. And so I had that foundation with me. And I ended up fighting the case. And I got out right before my year clean. And how I got out was I pleaded guilty to intent to manufacture, which they gave me 4 years in prison. And then I pleaded guilty to my felony violation of probation, a violation of my felony probation. All the probation I was on for all my felonies and all my different stuff that I could go on forever on the different street crimes and all the stuff like commercial burglary, transportation, sales of hallucinogenic, all kinds of stuff I got. But so when I came out, they gave me 4 years for my intent to manufacture and 3 years for my violation. But they would suspend the sentence if I would go back to that sober living for 1 year. So it didn't take a rocket scientist.
Right.
I wanted to go back, and I signed it. I went back to the recovery home in Covina, and I did my year there. I ended up staying there. Did my year. Had my experience in a recovery home of going to all kinds of meetings, and I got my job back that I had. I got a coffee commitment. Made me feel important. I got this book that we read. It's called The Basic Text, and I was reading that, and I was sharing it with everybody in the recovery home, and my life got centered in recovery, because my obsession and my compulsion was now on recovery.
Yeah. It's still there.
My obsession and my compulsion was I want to understand these steps. I want to understand these principles. I want to know how to apply them to my life. It's a thing I always share about. I had to learn how to show up, shut up, and then show out. Like I had to show up to the meetings. Then I had to learn to shut up because I always thought I knew what I was talking about. And then I had to go live it, and that has been a little format for me since like 2 years clean. You know, I always say we read, we write, we share, and we apply. We read everything we can about the step, then we write on what we read, then we share on what we read and wrote, and then we apply what we read, wrote, and shared.
Yep.
And we're living the program. And I have been doing that centered in my life now for 18 years. My first year clean was all in jail. My second year clean was all in sober living. And then when I got out coming up on, because I ended up staying in that sober living for 22 months. Because after I did my year, I didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was comfy and I was there. I didn't even have a car yet. You know, I was watching all these people get everything back and I was still on a stolen bike.
Yep.
You know, I'm stealing a bike from the sober living to go to the NA meet or the meetings I go to. And I'm like, man, you know, and I'm like, I'm not doing this right.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting girls and cars and jobs. And I'm like sleeping in a sleeping bag in a twin bed, eating oranges and peanut butter.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that? So I didn't get my first car till I had 20 months clean.
Yeah.
Right. And I seen the guy with 6 months. I seen the guy with 90 days. I seen the guy I seen all these people get cars.
Yeah.
Right. And I've had multiple moments where I was like, what the fuck am I like mad at God? Like, bro, I'm going to meetings. I'm of service. I'm praying. I'm working steps. I have a sponsor. I'm doing all this. Right. Like, what am I doing wrong? Do you not like all that stuff, right? So I got my first car at 20 months. No driver's license, not insured. Car's not even registered in my name, right? Like, the third night, I'm parked in front of this apartment complex waiting for this girl to come out at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sweating, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking back, like, I don't want to lose my car. Like, I just spent everything I have. I was like $1,800 on this car. Like, right? And I had this moment, and I was like, that's why.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't get a car at 90 days. That's why I didn't get a car at a year. Because
that's it.
Even with working knowledge of the 12 steps, even with a sponsor, even with all these things I had going on, I was still acting out in bad behavior.
Right.
At almost 2 years clean.
Right. That's why I was saying God gives us stuff back as we can handle it. Like if I'd have got a car back earlier, I might not still be clean.
Yep.
If I'd have got a girl, I might still not be clean.
Yeah.
God gave me stuff as I can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so much stuff has gone on since then in my life. I mean, so many battles. You know, I go from victory to victory, challenge to challenge, storm to storm, you know, in these last 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, that was just the first battle, was the sober living.
Yeah.
Then getting out of there and moving into a little compartment. You know, it wasn't even big enough to call it an apartment. You know, it was just a little compartment in La Puente, up on the top of the hill in La Puente by City Industry.
Yeah.
Man, and I had a little car and a little compartment. It's kind of funny. When I moved in there, the lady that I lived in this little back house, and this lady, she says, "You lonely? You need a friend?" I said, "No, I don't need no friend." She said, "You lonely?" And she said, "I threw Kitty in your apartment." I said, "No, I don't want no cat, man." Because after Magnum had passed away, my pit bull I talked about earlier, I wanted no more animals. That stuff hurt when that dog passed away. Yeah. And so I was like, "No, I don't want no more animals, man." And she's like, "Yeah." So like for 3 days, I'm like, "Kitty, kitty, kitty, no kitty in my little compartment." I mean, and then she came in and she's like, "Gato mandanana," and out from underneath the sink comes this little kitty. It spoke Spanish. I said, "I don't want no Spanish-speaking cat." But I'm going to tell you, me and that cat were inseparable for the next 16 years. You know, he's a big part of my story. His name was Spons. His name was Spons. He had a lot of fifth steps. He heard a lot of fifth step stuff, man.
That's cool.
But anyways, yeah, he passed away, you know, like 2 years ago, November. This is a big anniversary time for me, this little time right here and season in my life of stuff. But, you know, I don't have reservations. It's a great time of year, man.
All right.
Yeah.
Good, bad, ugly. You know, my son's birthday, my daughter's birthday was October 15th. My clean date is October 27th. October 31st is the anniversary of my Jasmine Star being killed by a TV falling on top of her. November 11th is my wedding anniversary. No. November 12th. Sorry, honey. November 12th is my wedding anniversary. And then November 22nd, my sponsor passed away. So, you know, you got this roller coaster of emotions going on with me right now.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful, you know. God is good. God is good, yeah.
So you mentioned a couple of the tough things. I heard you share about this at an event. Would you want to get into that?
Yeah, I don't mind. I've had a lot. I mean, you know, it's always not the big things that take you out in recovery. It's the little things. You know, it's the judgmental, the irritability, the discontent, you know, the lack of self-acceptance. You know, the big things you'll really see recovery rally around you. You'll really see people step up, you know. If you're available and visible, like my life has been centered in recovery, you know. So, you know, again, so when Jazzy passed away, you know, she was coming back into my life, and she was killed by a TV falling on top of her. And, you know, everything that I had talked about and learned in recovery and learned in steps and sponsorship and all that stuff, I had to apply to my life to really not use at that time, you know. So it was really a calling I feel on my life, you know what I mean, to now carry a message. Because at first, you know, my story was about drug use and, you know, coming out of the, you know, being a tweaker on a bike and getting clean. And now it's about really learning how to live through grief and loss and wanting to help other people and becoming like the messenger of hope. Like, we don't have to use, you know, through storms. You know, and I didn't really know that was happening in my life at that time. I was really broken, and, you know, the recovery fellowship that I was in just covered me, man. Just covered me. And they just made me feel so special, you know, and I started getting a chance to, like, go share my story in a lot of different places. Like, my phone today is blowing up with people from different regions, different states, different people that I'm like, hey, I don't even have this number saved. Who is this? Hey, it's me from Wyoming. It's me from, you know, all these different places I've gone and gone to carry the message, you know, of being a tweaker on a bike and then coming in here and learning how to live out loud and going through stuff. And so after my daughter passed, you know, it was like, you know, I didn't use because I had a first step in my life. Like, I don't know how to use successfully.
Right. Yeah.
And I didn't let my depression defeat me because I had a third step in my life. Like, I had surrendered everything. Like, I just didn't give God in my third step just my drug problem. Like, I gave him my everything, you know what I mean? And I really needed to lean on that faith of just, you know what I mean? Where God guides, God's going to provide. You know, this wasn't out to get me. You know, this is just a story that he gave me because he knew I was going to be able to touch people. Just like when the lady, when she was coming to put a knife in my chest, and God said, I got big things for him. I had big things for him. So what really happened in that, though, is, like I say, I'm obsessive, compulsive, and self-centered. So I started to use the recovery fellowship that I was in like the drugs. And I started to numb my feelings with traveling and sharing. And, you know, we need to tread lightly in ego-inflating areas. And I'm getting flown to places to share, going to conventions, and I'm getting flown into places. And, you know, I mean, I got to go be the main speaker at the North Shore in Hawaii. And Ladybugs invaded the island. I have this Ladybug story that I was in my life, that I was in my story with, which came into my life, you know. And Ladybugs invaded the island. All this stuff had gone on, you know, but I was really using the recovery program to numb my feelings and not awaken my spirit. And I really had to really shift of how I prioritized my life in that. And it was really, you know, I started working steps in a different way. You know, I got a new sponsor at 8 years clean. I really, really fed my feelings at that time. And I blew up to about 300 pounds. And I didn't know what to do, so I really got really sick by putting my finger down my throat. And as quietly as it's kept, you know, it's a form of addiction that really got me.
Yeah.
You know, men don't talk about that stuff enough. And I got really, really sick. And I really felt like an outside issue in Narcotics Anonymous, or in the 12-step fellowship I go to. I felt like an outside issue because, yes, it's always, you know, I'm an addict. I mean, yes, I don't know how to use drugs successfully, but man, I'm broken and I'm hurting and I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to share about this. I don't know how to live out loud so I don't die inside. I don't know how to talk to anybody about that stuff. And this lady came up to me and she knew what I was doing. I just looked at her and I was like, how did you know? And she says, I can tell by the muscles in your throat. And I was like, what? And she's all, yeah, you see all this? And, now I don't have a neck. But anyways, back then, it's just all this from getting sick. And I just hugged her. And I was like, thank you so much for coming to me and telling me that you knew what I was doing, because I was suffering in silence. And, man, again, that's another calling on my life to talk about that kind of stuff too. I had gotten married at 7 years clean, and I knew my wife had trouble with that before, so I didn't want to talk to her about it. I didn't want to tell nobody, and so that lady told me, she said, Chris, you need to lean into your pain. And I didn't know what she meant by that. And, I'm still going to meetings. I'm still living out loud. I'm still, of service. I'm doing all this H&I. I'm just like heavily involved in recovery. And one night I was crying like so bad outside of a meeting. And I was leaning on this guy. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not an outside issue. I need you. I can't do this alone. I am trying to fight this thing alone. And that's when I started to share about it. I started to talk about it. I started to get some relief from it. I started to work some steps on it. I started to just, I got victory over it. And it was a real part. It was a really dark time in my life, from probably 5 years clean till about 8 years clean. I was in a really dark season. But, I never used. I never used. I don't know how to use successfully. I mean, there's so much stuff too that, in recovery, what we learn and how we apply it and what we're doing. And, there's so much that, we could get into on how it's, it's not as easy as just not using.
Right.
It's like telling a homeless guy, just get a house.
Yeah.
I know what your problem is. You know what I mean? So really it was like it was really just I ended up getting this graveyard shift, right? And I started working in recovery. And I got this graveyard shift, and I was stuck in this graveyard shift for 7 years. But I see how God used that time in my life, because I was there working at night, or learning how to help other people, and I could read and I could write. I ended up writing this 178-page 4-step while I was there. I ended up doing all this reading and writing, and my sponsor that I had at that time, he's all, Chris, it's time to share and apply now. And I was stuck in this cave for 7 years to heal. Right. I was stuck in this cave for 7 years to heal. And that's where actually the Ladybug story came in my life. Because after 3 months after my daughter had passed away, this guy who is a very good friend of mine, his name is Robin, and he was the program director at this hospital. And he gave me a job there because I was trying to tear my life down again. You know what I mean? When that was happening, I wasn't using, but I didn't know what I was doing, man. And so he gave me that job, put me on graveyard. I remember he said, Chris, do you know how to stay up all night? I was like, dude, I didn't own a bed. I didn't own a bed for 3 years, bro. I know how to stay up all night, and so anyways, I ended up getting stuck in that graveyard shift, but it was really, as you step back and look at, the last 20 years of my life, I look at that season like it was so necessary. And I was getting with my wife at that time. And, she was in recovery, and I was in recovery, and we were learning how to be together, and we were learning how to, have a God-centered relationship. And, it was just a really beautiful time in my life when I was thinking I was in misery. But as I look back, it was just such a time of healing and such a time of a chance to really have something to I just want to help people, bro. And unfortunately it talks in our literature that if we share our pain with one person, our pain has been worth it. You know what I mean? If my pain can help one person, then my pain has been worth it. Right. And at first, I don't know if I accepted that. Right. But today I do. You know what I mean? I accept that. Because I've seen so much good that has come out from that. I have seen my higher power take what was meant to hurt me and turn it for good. I've watched it. And I just want to be a good example for recovery. I want to be a good example for God. And my story is my story, and that's how I walk every day. Yeah. I just want to serve, You know, I wake up every morning, put somebody in front of me that I can help today, man.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I'm grateful to come and do this, you know.
Yeah.
But there's, I mean, so all this kind of stuff, it builds you, it shapes you, it gives you all this stuff on how you can chat with people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I don't have this cookie cutter way to talk to people. I don't have a cookie cutter way to sponsor guys. Like, I really deal with what we're working at. Just like when I was in golf, when I taught golf, you don't teach everybody the same way. There's different shapes, different sizes, tall people, short people. You got to deal with them, but you teach them the fundamentals.
Yeah.
You know, you teach them the fundamentals. And I've been learning fundamentals since I was a kid in baseball. That's what my dad raised me as.
Yeah.
You've learned the fundamentals. And I did the same thing in recovery. And I just got obsessive with the fundamentals of recovery. You know, we call them the basics around here.
Yeah.
You know, and I've never left the basics in 20 years.
Right.
I've been available, visible, doing sponsorship, H&I, you know, for years, man. And that's just my calling. It's just my life, man. Yeah.
Well,
so go for it.
Thank you, Chris, for coming. We really appreciate you coming out. Is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, I think I would like to hear the Ladybug story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll kind of wrap it up after that. if
Okay,
you're with that.
fantastic. No, man, this is a story that's been saving my life for years, bro. A story that I've gotten to share all over everywhere, and it's a story that I share at the end of my share after I, you know, done my little share of, you know, I never have a pitch. You know what I mean? I never know what. Before I share, I always ask God to move me out the way so he can speak through me, and then I don't know what comes after that.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I always say, you know, I hope you stick around long enough to see a God work in your life. So eventually maybe you can start working for God. And the way I work for God is I tell everybody how good it is to be clean. And I tell everybody how perfect God is. Right. And that's the way. I don't know what comes out in the middle. But right before I get down to close, I'll always share my Ladybug story, which is a story that came in my life right when I started working that graveyard shift. It was 3 months after my daughter had passed, and I was outside. And I had a new shirt on, a tie, and this little ladybug landed on me. And I was like, shoot, go away, you know. And I came out about 4 hours later, and this ladybug was still on me. It was a yellow ladybug that stuck herself on me. And at that time, I had a power grid of myself in my life. There were cigarettes, and I used to, you know, I was smoking cigarettes, drinking Monsters. And anyways, this ladybug was on me, and I was like, oh my gosh. I feel my daughter's spirit through this ladybug, this new perspective, right? And so I was like, Jasmine Star, you're with me, you know what I mean? And I walked through my first day of work, and my boss had shown up to work in the morning, and he came in and called me in and asked me how my first day was, and the ladybug was still on me. And he went to go knock it off of me, and I squared up on him. Like, don't you touch my ladybug, buddy. And he's all, whoa, it's just a ladybug. And I was like, no, I feel Jasmine with me today through this ladybug. And, you know, we start crying together and stuff like that. And he's a really great dude. His name is Robin, and he's battling cancer right now. So it's kind of a story that he's the author of this story because. So when I got my first check at this hospital I was working at, we used to get this newsletter with our check called the Acorn. And the first thing he pulled out was this story, and there was ladybugs all the way around the story, and then this story written about what had just happened. How we got this guy, this new employee, his daughter just passed away. You know, he ran to a spiritual solution. This just beautiful story only this guy could write. So I took that story, right? It's kind of funny because... and I know we're probably done, but like this story, like I didn't know there was power in that story, right? Because until one day there's this guy, Teddy, at my home group, right? And he was brand new in recovery. And I had been talking about this ladybug, right? And Teddy said he was on his way. He was on the bus. He was done with recovery. He had like 60 days clean. He was done. This is stupid. I'm going to use. And a ladybug was on him. And he said, I thought of you, and I didn't use, and I couldn't wait to come to the meeting to tell you. And from then on, man, I was like, there is power in that ladybug story, in this little ladybug. So I tell the story because so now when I went back to my job that next day after that Acorn came out, there was ladybug magnets in every computer, on every office, there was ladybugs everywhere, right? So my daughter's spirit was everywhere. You know, I always say, I didn't lose my daughter. I know right where she is. You know what I mean? But this ladybug spirit and these people and the ladybug, they made me feel so special. And I mean, ladybugs follow me around, you know what I mean? And like I said, when I shared that story at the North Shore, ladybugs invaded the island Sunday morning. They're like, speaker brought ladybirds, speaker brought ladybirds. I'm like, no, my higher power brought ladybirds. So anyways, I always share that story because I always say, newcomer, old timer, sometimer, I don't know where you are in your recovery, but please don't buy the lie and use. Like if I would have bought the lie and used, I would have missed all of this wonderful stuff that, you know, people are sending me ladybug stuff today. I mean, I got a whole room at my house of stuff that people in recovery have given me of ladybugs. I mean, dude, I mean, it's so overpaid. And, you know, I always say my daughter's life, like, it was 6 years, but you know what I mean? I'm still her dad, bro. You know, and I still keep her story. I talk about her a lot. You know, like I always say there's a day on our headstone where you got the day you were born and then a dash and the day you die. You're pretty powerless over the day you were born and the day you die, but you got power over that dash.
Dash.
And what are you going to do with your dash? You know, and me, I'm Jasmine's dad, and my dash is going to be to help people and stay clean and serve God, man. And that's what I'm going to do with my dash. You know, I'm not going to be pour me a drink. You know, I'm going to serve, man. And so that's kind of my ladybug story, bro. There's a lot more to it, but that's the basic little skit of how that started. And then
Awesome.
God used it, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, if there's a copper stealing, bike riding tweaker out there right now, and you had some words of advice for him, what would that be? Somebody who's tired of it.
Somebody who's tired of it? Well, I would probably have to say, surrender, the war's over, put the pipe down, and come to a meeting.
Amen.
You know,
Yeah.
sit down, shut up, and then you can show up. But you got to come first.
Yeah.
You got to show up, and then learn to listen.
Yeah.
You know absolutely nothing about recovery until you come in here and get it. People that have left and come back, you just keep coming back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of times people that have come and then left and bought the lie.
Yep.
You know, there's only two mistakes in recovery. You buy the lie and use, that's the first mistake. The second mistake is you don't come back. So you got to come back, right? And then you have to change two things. You have to change your clean date, and you have to change your perspective on step one. You know, so please come and learn how to not buy the lie that a substance is helping you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Chris, very much for coming out.
Yeah.
Coming on the podcast. Everybody listening, please like, comment, subscribe, and share Chris's story with somebody who might need to hear it.
And if you need some resources, you can email us. The message is hopepodcast@gmail.com. See you next week.
I see him often here, wipe my tears. Only if you knew what I was going through. Only if you walked it in my shoes.
Looking at the skylight, thinking of my life like looking for the right state of mind to get my time right. I just hope my time's right. Lost up in the limelight, but you'll never know unless you walked up in my shoes.
As someone who struggled with addiction in the past, how does it feel to be able to give hope to others who are still struggling now?
You know, it's such an honor to be able to hear other people's experiences of life, to see how when faced with the very thing that was sent to destroy you, kill you and take you out forever didn't, but rather you have been given a second chance to give hope and be a light for those who are still in the dark. So don't be afraid to share your message to the world. You never know whose life you might be saving.